No! Ah! Minado.
Okay, cool. Thanks everyone for joining. Let's start another cmBuilder workshop. I just killed the music. So as you can see, today our workshop is gonna be themed with tennis. I have no idea what I'm talking about in relation to tennis, so I'm just gonna skip through that, and we can start then. Okay. Cool. So today our workshop agenda will be focused on reviewing ACC integration, right? Also, I'm going to talk about a visibility hierarchy. This is something that sometimes confuses some new users, but also some established users don't know a little bit how this you can leverage this on your projects, right? Let's talk about new feature highlights. So Navisworks compatibility is finally here. Resource placement shortcuts, and in the end, I'm gonna do a recap on the updates that I talked about last meeting, last workshop, just because like we didn't have enough time. So like I barely talked about them in the end. So I'm just gonna do a quick recap and talk about some more new tips and tricks. Okay, so just some housekeeping items here. The recording will be available shortly after this call. We have like a lot of good content in previous workshops on our YouTube playlist that you guys can check. And you can also use the QA or the chat here for questions and tennis related puns. Okay, so let's start. Um, First of all, I want to remind everyone to share your thoughts with our team. So your feedback is what fuels the development in cmBuilder, right? So we will work mostly on features and items that you guys have reported to us that are something that you guys like, so that you want in the tool. So I'm just reviewing here, like, and making a public invite for you to let us know what you want about cmBuilder in terms of like new features, bug reports, and things like that. So you just need to click on the question mark over there on the top of your screen. And for bug reports, you're gonna just tell us if things are not working as they should. For feature requests, you can tell us if you want cmBuilder to do new things, new tools, improvements on the tools that we have today, and other capabilities. And for resources requests is for you to let us know if there are things missing from our resource library, right? So specific objects that you want, they are not in there. So I want you just like double down on this, invite you, ask you guys for feature requests, okay? Especially feature requests, because this let us know like what is that you would like to see in the tool for our new updates, okay? So let's start with first with our ACC integration. So let me close this, and I'm gonna go through the step by step on how to connect your project with ACC and what you can do with that, right? So the first step needs to be done on the ACC admin side, right? So first of all, you need to install cmBuilder on your ACC account. So when you go into your ACC, you can go here as an admin, you can go into the account admin list, right? So from here, you're gonna click on apps, and then cmBuilder is already installed in our account in ACC, but you can search for cmBuilder and then install it, right? So if I hit Control F over here on my keyboard, I can put in cmBuilder, and this will bring me to this list. Sadly, there's no search function for the apps library directly in ACC, but you can select here and then search for cmBuilder. You're gonna click on cmBuilder's icon, and then you can hit install here once for like new integrations. This will be done on the by the admin, and you are adding the cmBuilder access to your whole account, right? Once you're done with that, you can move on to enabling the ACC integration on the cmBuilder side, right? So in the cmBuilder project, in your account, you can click over here in company settings. Again, this is for the admins of the company. You're gonna click on integrations, and then you're gonna enable the Autodesk linking from cmBuilder, right? So this you're just telling on both sides that you want this integration to happen. You install it on the ACC side and enable it on the cmBuilder side. Okay. Once that's done, you can now create a link to a project. Now that that connection is established, you can go in and link ACC to a new project. So if I go back here, I can open this project that is not linked to ACC. And as you can see, there are two projects that I'm showing over here. One of them has this link that shows that the integration has already been established for this one, and this one doesn't have it, so there's no integration either. So when I click on this guy, you can go here, and over here on the top part of your project, you're going to see this link to Autodesk project, and you can click on this button to create that link. So when you click on this, you can select the company space that you're going to use. So I'm selecting here CAD Makers, and you can select which project you're going to connect this cmBuilder project to, right? So now the next step here is just to select which project I want. And in this page, I can select if I want to limit which folder cmBuilder will be, this project will be able to access from within ACC. So when I click on this, I can see the same project files folders here that I would see in ACC. So here, if I go back to my project, workshop project, and going to docs, you can see that I have a structural folders here, and this is the same structure that you're going to see once you open this. And then you can select that if you want this project to only have access to the Navisworks folder or architectural folder or structural folder, whatever folder structure you have inside ACC. Okay, so if I deactivate this, I'm going to be able to access every single project model file that is inside of this project in the ACC counterpart. Now that this is established, I can go here in the documents page where I'm going to select which models I'm going to upload. For you to upload a model from ACC into cmBuilder, the important thing is to know that a conversion needs to happen, right? So just because the two projects are connected, it doesn't mean that you can already use the models directly. You need to convert them into cmBuilder first. So you can do that from the documents page here in the project, where you can click on this guy, and this will open, and then you can see all the models that have been converted to cmBuilder already and which models haven't been yet converted. So in here, I can select which models I want to bring into cmBuilder and convert them from an integration. So if I click here in sample structure, I can click on this guy over here on the top, convert file from integration, and I'm gonna see this page. This is a page that I really like to stress the importance of this kind of like menu here, because you're selecting which IFC classes you want to convert from that model. So several times you're going to select, let's say you want to import an architectural model, and that model has a bunch of stuff that you're not going to need, like furniture, ceilings, spaces, bunch of parts that you don't need on your logistics kind of like simulation. So you can filter these elements out, and you can create your own predefined filter, right, by just turning these guys off, and this will be saved for your next integration. Or you can go in your user profile that I'm going to show in a minute how to do that. So basically, I have my own kind of like idea of which parts I usually want to convert. My default state here is to keep only like beams, columns, curtain walls, and all of these elements that I know there will be part of my critical path most of the times. There is also a category called building element proxy that is kind of like a generic category that a lot of parts in Revit or any other BIM softwares are categorized as building element proxy as an IFC category, because they don't have like a predefined category. So like I usually keep this on because I don't know if like what the person that created that model assigned to this category, you know. And also, if you're converting files from SketchUp, for example, and you apply it, you export an IFC from SketchUp, a lot of parts will show up in this category. Like almost everything that it doesn't have an IFC class will show up in this category. So it's always good to keep them on. Okay. So once I hit upload, this file now will go into processing because it will take some time for this to be downloaded from the ACC side, bring it over to our server, and then convert, and then it will be available for us to use. Okay, this process can also be done from inside of the scenario. So as you can see over here, this is still in processing. But if I open a scenario, I can do the same process by clicking on the beam import here, and this will show me the list of parts of items that have already been converted to this project, and there's a list of items that are available on the integration side. So on the ACC side, all the models that I have connected to the folders will show up in here, and I can create that connection directly from the platform. Okay, so this is quite important because like you're going to be bringing these files over there here, and you can also manage, let's say that if you brought a file that it's not the one that you want and you want to just remove this from the list, you can click on the archive function here. This archive is only available at this page, on the documents page, and this will take this file out of my list of converted parts. It's still going to show up in here as something that has been uploaded, but the status will be archived. And if I want to bring these files back from archive documents, I can click on my cmBuilder tab, click on the archive documents, and then I can see which ones have been archived. Okay, so there you go. So let's say that you have imported a model from ACC, you started using it, and then you have a new version of that model available on the ACC side. Someone went in there, and then let's say, for example, inside of the IFC folder over here, someone uploaded a new version. This won't get you a kind of like a warning right away saying like, hey, there is a new version for your file, anything like that. But that file that is going to be here in your view on your scenario, if there is a new version available, you won't see that from the scenario itself. But if you open the documents page, you will be able to see if there is a new version available for that model. So this little warning over here will tell you that, and then you can go in and sync model from integration. So as you can see, if I go back into the scenario, let me open this in a new tab. So if I go back into this scenario, as you can see, this model that I have imported from ACC, it's missing some parts over here on the top. So maybe the person that's creating this model has not yet finished with that level and whatnot. So I can go here in my documents page, and then I can sync this new version, sync for model from integration. And this will show, like, we'll go through the same process where I can choose the same things that I chose before. And it's going to take some time processing. And then once the new file version is available, it will show up in here. But then I'm going to get a warning in this view saying that there is an update available for that model, right? So if I have connected this model to my timeline, defining parts that's supposed to show up and go away in specific dates and all of that, I can now update this with a new version of this file, and then I'm gonna see here what has changed, right? So I can see that the version 1 had this many parts and nothing has been removed, and I synced all of the same parts that I had before, but there is a new 1,600 new parts here, and this is the total new parts, right? You can scroll all the way down over here to see like which parts have been added to this list. And when I click on update version, we're gonna see the new updated version in the same location with the added level here at the top. Okay, so this is like the main kind of like use case for like an ACC integration is for you to bring models and keep them updated as you need. And just to review here the process, first of all, we install cmBuilder on the ACC side. It needs to be done by someone that has admin rights on the ACC side. And then you can enable that cmBuilder integration in the ACC integration inside cmBuilder, also done by like an admin on the cmBuilder side. Then you're going to link the projects, define the models that you want to upload, and if you have new versions for those models, you can sync them and have that new version available. Okay. One little note about versioning of models. So this is not related to ACC. This is related to any new version that you bring in for your models. If you have connected this model with your timeline and you have parts showing up in different milestones, and then you have a new version coming in, we will try as best as we can to retain that connection, right? But what do we compare on both models? We will compare not the IFC structure as you see over here, but if you click on the group by function and go into original file tree, you're gonna see what is the hierarchy that is not based by IFC classes, but based on what is in the root of that file. And we will compare this tree structure with the new one. So tree structure A, version 1, sorry, to the version B. And if parts that belong on level 2, for example, these beams, they now belong on another folder, or like they move within this tree structure, we will consider that to be a new part, right? So a but if a geometry of a part changes and that item remains in the same location of the tree structure, we don't consider that as a new part. So the sequence for that second case, the connection to the sequence will remain. But for the first case where like parts will move in the tree structure, we will consider that it's a new part, and then you have to assign them to the milestones again. Cool. And the easiest way to see if like there are parts that are unassigned to your milestones or not is to click on this sequencing viewer here in the bottom, and then you see a highlight of parts based on their connection to the milestones, and everything in red will show you what is not connected to the milestones, and then you can go over here and deactivate these other guys, and then you can see in the view directly what is that you still need to connect to the milestones because we couldn't retain that sequence, right? Another way to see the same thing is by clicking over here on the group by in the tree structure, go into start milestone. A lot of people don't know about this start milestone, so it's very interesting to know that you can group your parts by their connection to the start milestone. So for example, all of these parts that are selected here are connected to this milestone, right? So these are my green parts, okay? And undefined will show everything else that is not connected to the milestone. But if I expand this, you see that you're gonna have like other groupings or like other elements like drawings, resources, they will show up over here in undefined as well. And if you keep expanding this, you see the parts of that specific model that are not connected to the milestones. So you can visualize the new parts both on the tree structure or at your view, 3D view here with this little filter. Okay. So this is it for ACC integration. If you have any questions, please drop them on the chat and on the QA. Now moving on to the next step of our session here today, visibility hierarchy. So I wanted to bring this in because it's something that I've seen a lot of questions keep popping up and so on, and I wanted to cover this to make sure that everybody understands the basics out of how the visibility hierarchy is managed in cmBuilder. So basically what I'm talking about over here is how do you manage what is visible and what is not over time, or like or on your default scenario. Okay, so let's talk about this. The first, whatever is available on like as the main visibility hierarchy are the persistent heights. So the persistent height can only be applied to the project map. So it applies to the terrain only, and basically what it means that once this object is hidden, it will remain hidden until you decide to bring it back again. So if I open this scenario and I go here in my beam structure and I decide to hide my project map, you see that the map is going to go away. If I refresh my view, that map is not going to come back. This is a persistent height. I'm defining that at this stage, I want this terrain to be hidden. So you can bring it back by clicking on this to show, or you can open your settings and turn on and off your terrain from here. So I've gotten this question from customers several times, say, hey, my map is gone. I don't have a terrain. What do I do? So basically, you probably turned it off, refresh the scenario, and didn't notice that it doesn't come back by default. Okay. So this is a persistent hide and it applies to the terrain only. The next element, the next stage that will override everything else that's below it is the presentation view. So when you hit play on a presentation, if you go here, presentation slides and you hit play on this presentation, whatever is defined on the slides will be overriding like the view. So if I added callouts, if I added sections, if I added measurements and all of that, these will be brought in and show because like you're looking at what is the slide, but what is assigned to that slide, right? Inserted into that slide. And the slides will override all the temporary visibility. So if you have temporarily hidden elements and you hit play on that, or if you open the presentation mode, everything that is temporary hidden will come back, right? So the presentation view overrides that, right? So it uses the milestone connection to show the parts, but it will bring everything that is temporary back, and it also will show callouts that are connected to that, dimensions, and section cuts. Okay. The next step is, also the presentation view will apply the presentation visuals. So like things that you define to be highlighted in green or apply the growth visual or growth profile, you will be visible on during the presentation as well. So like that will override all the other visibilities. The next element stage on the hierarchy is the temporary visibility. This is one feature that is super important to learn how to use in cmBuilder because you're always going to be working with a lot of parts, right? So if you imported a model, your model is going to contain a bunch of parts and it can be quite daunting to manage all of these using just the milestone connection. So we have this temporary visibility state where you can turn elements on and off quickly in your view, and you can restore the whole scene like if you want to, or just per a selection, right? So let me go here in a completed scenario where if I go into my milestones, let's go to a milestone here with some building parts. So if I go to this milestone and I click on this slab, I can right click on the slab or I can right click on the group or whatever selection I have active at the moment. I can go in and I can temporarily hide an object. So this object, it has a connection to the milestones. As you can see over here, it has a start date for it. I start a visibility, but once I temporarily hide it, that part is not going to show up when it's supposed to show because it's hidden, right? I'm overriding the connection with the timeline. So this is this can be this can give you like a wrong idea that like that part's not showing up in your milestone, but that's not right because actually there is a temporary hide state applied to it. And for you to know like if something's temporarily hidden or showing, you just need to look at your tree structure here. There is going to be like a little notification and also over here on the top. So I can restore the temporary visibility by clicking on this button for that part. But of course, if you can't find that part on your tree structure, you can simply click on this whole thing over here and it will restore all the parts on your tree structure to its temporary hiding state, right? But you can also apply this to a parent. So let's say that I temporarily hid all the elements on level 2. I can go over here in my structure and say I want to reset temporary hide and show for this selection. Okay, so this is a good way for you to clear the view, for you to work on things that are behind other elements, or you just want to say that you want to kind of like clean up stuff so you can focus on one thing. For example, whenever I'm working on a sequencing, if I want to create a sequence for this building, what I would do is I will always try to work with one model at a time and to isolate that model in my view, I'm going to select the structural model, right click, and instead of like temporary hide all the rest, I'm going to just click over here and say I want to temporary hide everything else. So all the other parts of my view are going to go away temporarily, minus the terrain, because the terrain is above everything else. So you need to hide the terrain on your own by clicking on this button over here. Okay. And then once I am done working with this model, I can go and click on this guy. But again, the terrain is not going to come back. So you can click on show to bring back the terrain and like work with that within the context. Okay. So keep that in mind that like working with temporary visibility will really help you manage elements quicker, and like the temporary hide everything else is also super great whenever you're working with sequences, because you want, if you want to isolate one model, and that can also I'm talking about imported models over here, but this can apply to anything else that you want. So let's say that I want to temporary hide just these lines. I can go over here. Oh, sorry, temporary hide everything else, but keep only the lines. So I can do that. And now my lines are still visible in the view. Okay. So you can play around with this a lot. And not this. One thing is that this temporary hide and show will override the sequencing view. So right now, there's no temporary hide and show applied to it, to this model. So if I click on the sequencing view, I can see, let's go back a couple milestones here. I can see the sequencing view very clearly, and but there are elements over here that are hidden, as you can see this wireframe. So this wireframe is showing the objects that I have decided to temporarily to hide in the view. So if I now select, let's see, you have like a bunch of yellow objects over here that refers to like elements that are in the future compared to this milestone. So I can, if I go into my architectural model and I temporarily hide this guy, those parts are going to be removed from this sequencing view. So the sequencing view is not overriding the temporary hide and show, but the opposite. Okay, so everything that's temporarily hidden is not going to be revealed by the sequencing view. Okay, and one last thing about the temporary hide and show is that it can be redundant. So let's say that you have a part right now that is showing in this milestone, right? So if I right click on this guy, I will see the temporary hide option. And then this will become, or you just tell me that this is selected but hidden. But if I go back and I do not reset the temporary hide show, but I do a temporary show, I'm telling the software right now that I want to see this object regardless of its connection to these milestones. So if I keep going back, that object that is supposed to be hidden on previous milestones is still showing, because I decided that this is in a temporary show state. And you can see that there is a temporary state applied to my tree structure here. So just because like the part was showing on the milestone and I click on temporary show, it doesn't mean that it will like go back to its kind of like default state, right? Because like I do this sometimes, like when I hide something, and then okay, I did everything that I want to do inside of this lab, and then I click on this lab over here, and I click to hide again with my shortcut H, it will bring it back as a temporary show state. So now there is a temporary show applied to this, and maybe I didn't notice, and then I start working, and then when I go back into my sequence, that object is visible at all times. Okay, so that's what I mean by you can make this visibility state to be redundant, because you can force it to be on at all times or off at all times, even though if you don't click on the reset temporary show. Okay, I think that I'm not sure if like I made myself super clear over here, but if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. The other element in the hierarchy over here below the temporary visibility is the sequencing view. So this will apply color highlights to elements based in its connection to the active milestone. And you can filter these, but also keep in mind that the sequencing view will only apply to imported models. So if I go back here and I reset this whole thing, let's say that right now what I'm looking is that what I'm looking at over here is that there are parts above this slab that are supposed to show in future milestones, and below the slab that has already been assigned to previous milestones. But when I click on the sequencing view, this will override everything that I've connected to the milestones to show me how these parts are connected with future or past milestones. So everything that is in yellow belongs to the future, everything that is in green belongs to a current milestone, everything that is blue is in the past, and the red ones are not sequenced yet. So as you can see, like all the parts of my model are visible, but they have colors to show me where they belong compared to the active milestone. And the great thing about this is that you can deactivate these colors and you can like work with just one of them. So like if I want to isolate only what it's in the current milestone, so I can really kind of like analyze this model sequence, I can do that and just look at the parts that are connected to this milestone, for example. So keep that in mind, that like every time that you're working with your sequencing view, this will override the connection with the milestones by highlighting the parts with different colors. This is a great tool to help you sequence your models fast, because when you're creating a sequence from start, let's say this project over here, if I were to create a sequence from start with this model, let me hide my map and hide all the other elements and create a unnamed sequence here. Let's say that I want to assign the piles here to this milestone. So I can connect this pile, select all of these piles, connect them to this milestone. But now there's nothing that tells me what is the difference between these parts that I just connected to the rest. However, if I click on sequencing view, this will highlight everything based on their connection to the milestones. And I can quickly say, okay, I want to work now with just the parts that haven't yet been assigned. So like, let me just deactivate the assignment of these guys over here. So if I want to work with just the parts that haven't been assigned to the milestone, I can just filter everything out and look just at these red parts. And then I can select them from here and start connecting them to the correct milestones. And when I connect them to a milestone, they will go away because now they belong to this green category. So when I click on this, they come back. Okay, so this is a great way for you to filter and quickly create your sequence, because the sequencing view will highlight all of these parts based on that connection. And it's funny how like some kind of like older customers, they also don't know too much about the sequencing view. So I like to bring this back every now and then to highlight it so people can start using it. Okay. The other part is the standard milestone connection that basically just defines like when parts are supposed to come and go away in your view. And one thing that I want to highlight about this part is just that the hide from all milestone is something that you can apply to any object. So if I select a couple of objects here, I can click on this hide from all milestone to make sure that these parts that I just selected will be hidden by default. So with models, you're not going to use this for parts that you're executing. You're going to use this for parts that you don't want to show in your sequence. So you can simply select parts that you want to remove from your sequence and just hide it from all milestones. But one thing that I really, really want to double down in terms of like the capabilities is about drawings. I've mentioned this a couple times already in these sessions, but it's very important to at least know that you can do this with drawings as well, because I've seen countless times, like I open a scenario of a customer and I see that there are several drawings like hovering in the view, and then like when they share the scenario with me and we start talking about it, they need to hide everything so they can work with a state where like those drawings are not always visible, right? So you can my personal preference is that if it's a drawing that I'm only going to use as a reference, I will always make this drawing to be hidden at all milestones, because when I open the scenario, by default, I don't want to see the drawing. I only want to see it whenever I need to use it, right? To position things and things like that, elements and things like that. So those drawings will have like the default state to be hidden at all times. And you can bring them back from this list over here on the top, or you can just go into your item on the tree structure and then bring it back. Okay, so very, very important to know that you can put these drawings into this category of like, I don't want to see them at all times, just want to bring them back whenever I need them. Okay, and the visible by default is the lowest kind of like a tier on this hierarchy. Is just that every time that you import an element like drawings or models and resources and things like that, or you create a massing, these objects are set to be visible by from the start to the end of your project. So if I am here in this project where like I already have a bunch of milestones created for it, if I go here and create a massing, like even if I am active on, let's say, milestone 8, 9, and I create a massing, this massing will be defined to show from, let's say, put it like a couple levels here, 10 levels, and okay. So these massing elements, if I go and select them here, like all of these elements, they are set to start from the beginning to the end. So by default, the massing, whenever you create it, is set to show from the beginning to the end. And then you need to connect them to the milestones in the way that you want, right? Same thing will happen with models. So once you import a model into the view, everything in that model will be set to show from the beginning to the end. Okay. However, when you place a resource, let's say that I'm on milestone 9 and I place a resource here, that resource by default will have the start date defined to be the active milestone. So when I go back, that resource is gone. And when I go further, it's going to show up. Okay. Just to define like what is the default visibility of elements that you bring into the view. Okay. So resources and annotations, we have this a command where like when you place that element, it will be active from that milestone onwards. Cool. So just reviewing this hierarchy here, I'm going to go backwards now. So elements will show up visible by default with these rules over here, and then you can connect them to the milestone, and this will override the visibility, the default visibility, and you can look at the sequencing view, and this will override the milestone connection. You can look at the defined temporary visibilities and so on, and this will override the sequencing view. Your presentation view will bring every temporary elements back to view, like everything that's supposed to be showing will come back, everything that's supposed to be hidden will be hidden, and the persistent hide that applies to the terrain only. Okay, so use these rules to manage the visibility of parts in your view, because it's going to really help you work more efficiently. And just a quick notes on shortcuts. So if I select an element, let's say oh, by the way, you can also temporarily hide elements that are locked. So like, for example, these building model here is not locked right now. So if I lock it, it means that I cannot edit this element. And if I click on it once, it won't select them. But if I click on it twice, it will select them. And if I right click on it, it will select them. But as you can see, a locked element can be temporarily hidden and can also be isolated from the view from everything else. Okay. And just a quick note on shortcuts. So when you click on an object, the shortcut to temporarily hide something is H. So I use this all the time, right? So you're just clicking on elements, hitting H so you can hide them and see what is behind it. And the shortcut you connect to the milestone, to the start and to the end date is Control B and Control E. So these three shortcuts is how you're going to manage the visibility of this part on your view. Okay. Just a quick reminder of the list of shortcuts that we have. You can go over here in the question mark, go click on key shortcuts, and then explore these tabs to see all the different shortcuts that we have available in the tool. Okay, if you have any questions, please drop them on the chat or in the QA. Cool. So let's go forward here to our new feature. We have now compatibility with Navisworks files. So NWD and NWC files are supported now, and you can import them into cmBuilder directly without having to convert to an FBX how we used to do it before. So if I have like a Revit file and I wanted to open in Navisworks, that Revit file will show up over here. But several times you're gonna get Navisworks files from your consultants NWD files, right? And instead of like exporting them to a FBX format and then bring it over to cmBuilder, I don't need to do that anymore. You can simply bring in the file directly. So if I go back here on this project that is integrated with ACC already, I can click on the beam imports, go into my integration, and then I can select the NWD file here. And once I convert it, that file is going to take some time to convert, and then it's going to show up in my view. Okay. And the thing about the NWD files is that the tree structure of that file is a little bit different than all the rest, because it doesn't have IFC classes applied to it, but it has the Navisworks tree structure and other ways to view like the grouping of these parts. So let's just isolate this model here. And if I expand my tree structure of this model that is visible at the moment, you're going to see this definition of levels. And then when you open this, you're going to see more kind of like detailed classy for this, like concrete 10, concrete 12, concrete 18. So just showing the thickness of those concrete walls and so on. And these kind of like attributes are coming from the NWD file directly. But if you want to see this tree structure exactly as you have them here in Navisworks, when you expand this like level 1, 335 low, for example, you see that I can see floors. Let me put this side by side. So let's expand both, right? So L135 low. So you see how this organization of items is different than this one, because this is the original file tree. So for me to see that exact same file tree, I need to go over here in the group by, go into original file tree, and then when I expand this, I will see the exact same one. And when I expand this guy, I will see like floors and then floors, right? Structural columns, structural columns. If I keep expanding this, I will see more and more kind of like definitions about these parts. Okay, so explore this and let us know what you think about this new integration. Okay, so looks like this list here is showing like the things inside of the third level of the group inside here. Okay, so concrete rectangular beam is the same as CB 24, 2430, 1824. Okay, so new capabilities, NWD compatibility is live. Going to the next one, resource placement shortcuts. So this is something that a lot of customers have requested, right? The ability to place multiple resources quickly, adjust the rotation before placing. And this is applicable only for point-based resources at the moment. So if I go back into my view and let's hide all of this so I can work with a completely clean scenario. And let's say that I want to place in, like, say, a concrete pump over here. So if I go into my resources, I can click on all, equipment, vehicles, concrete equipment, and then find a concrete pump that I want. Before I click on the location that I want for this, I have now these options here where I can place the same resource several times using control. So if I hold control and click on this, it will add copies of that resource at the same time. And if I hold Alt and drag my mouse sideways, I can rotate this object before I place it. So I can define a rotation, let's say this one here, and then now I can hold Control and click on this guy and place it several times with that orientation. And if I hold Alt and Shift, I will rotate in increments of 45 degrees. So this will give you like a better kind of like control on how to define these guys. Okay, so now you can place a bunch of these at once. Cool. So this will increase your kind of like speed when creating your scenarios depending on what you want to do. Let's say, for example, that in this view, I want to place a bunch of porta potties over here. So I can go in the logistics and facilities, sanitation units, and place my porta potty, but I want this to be aligned with this line over here. So I'm gonna go into my 2D view using Shift T as a shortcut, and then I'm gonna hold Alt and then rotate this guy until it aligns with what I want. Then I'm gonna hold Control and place a bunch of porta potties over here. However, as you can see, these are being placed as individual elements. So now, if I want to manage them, I need to manage them all individually, right? Or I can move them as a group by like moving them as a group and so on and so forth. However, if I want this to be a predefined group, I can click to add these resources a polyline. It's also something that I've talked about already in this workshop. But basically, if I create a polyline for resources that usually are not controlled by a line, it just means that I'm creating a pattern of repetition of that resource. So you can go here and define your spacing, you see, and then now these are not individual resources. When I click on it, it will always select all of them, but these ones, they are all individual ones. Cool. Nice. So this is going to help you guys work a little bit faster. And yeah, that's it for new features. So I want to just do a quick update, recap of the updates that I showed last session because didn't have time to talk about them, and so like a lot of people had left the session before I got the chance to talk about these quickly. But I just want to skim through to let everyone know that these are all available right now. So first of all, the split model function is now syncing with new updates. So if you create a split for a model, if you go here in this model and let's say this one, and then I split this slab with my model split function, something like this, and then I select this slab. If I have a new version of this, oh, this one didn't split. It's not enclosed. Oh yeah, so this one didn't work because probably this element is not enclosed. But anyways, so if I create a split, let's say like this one over here, where I slice this model in two, if I have a new version of this model and I bring it over, that split will remain the same location and it will remain splitting the same elements as long as they haven't changed on the tree structure, right? So now we are keeping the split two new versions of the same file. Okay. Sketch tool error detection. So some times when you're working with your sketch, you might have like some intersections that are keeping you from completing the sketch. So for example, if I go create a excavation here, when I do a cut and I want to do a cut, but I want to create a cut like this, when I hit confirm, this is telling me that the sketch is self-intersecting and there is an issue over there, like, and it will highlight where that issue is. So like if I do this again, and hit confirm, you see that it will highlight those elements for me. So I can go in there and fix those elements. So if the highlight goes away, you can hit on confirm again, and this will show you again where this problem is. So now I can go and remove that intersection, and then my cut is going to go through. Okay. So this is a way for you to identify where a sketch problem might be whenever you're drawing it. The next thing is that you can now add pending users to projects. So if you send an invite to a user and the person hasn't yet accepted, you can already invite that person to a project without having to wait for them to accept the invite, right? So that way you can quickly assign people to projects, even though they haven't accepted the invite. And the issue with this before is that you would need to wait for that person to do this, to get invited in, like, and you sometimes don't get a notification from them, so like you don't know when to add them from the to the projects. Now you can do this right away. And the fourth one is the ability to export images with the timeline and label embedded into it. So this is something also that a lot of our customers have requested. And if I go into a presentation like this one, and I want to, if I export my images right now, I can go into my presentation slides and select whatever slides I want to export. And you have now the ability, just for the screen resolution ones, you can put in the display timeline and display label. So basically, let me just do it for only one because that's why it's going to take a long time to export this. So if I go here and then want to display timeline and display label, when I hit export, this will take the timeline at the bottom and the label of the milestones over here, and also your branding if you have access to branding, and we'll put that in the image, right? So it gives you a better way for you to communicate with your customers whenever you're using just images and not a video. Okay, so super useful to give like more context for the viewers, for the people that you're sending the images to. And keep in mind that this only applies to the screen resolution. When I go into medium resolution or max resolution, I cannot export that because these are using other methods to export the image. Okay, so only for the screen resolution. Okie dokie. New stuff that I want to show for today. One is the tips and tricks here, performance troubleshooting guide. So this is very common in every 3D modeling software out there, is that depending on the work that you're doing or like the data uh, heaviness, how heavy is your data, you might stumble through like some performance issues, right? So, and now that we have like a user guide here, that's this performance troubleshooting guide written by my very good friend Justin, that's right behind me over here somewhere. Um, where we are helping you guys like diagnose and also understand how you can improve your performance. So there are several things that might be affecting your performance, like for example, how heavy your models are, or how many animations you placed on your site, or how big your excavation boundary is. So there are several different things that might be affecting your performance, and you can use this troubleshooting guide to help you figure out what is the method that you're going to use to improve that. Okay, so keep that in mind, and I'm going to put this over here in the chat so you guys can open that. But keep in mind, of course, that you can always open this directly from the platform. So if you go over here in the question mark and click on user guide, you can type in performance, and the first item that you're going to see is going to be the performance troubleshooting guide. You can see those instructions directly from here, or you can open our support center and search in the support center performance, right? So the first item here will be the performance troubleshooting guide. Okay, so use that to help you troubleshoot your performance issues. And then a quick tip and trick with our new preview interface, right? So as I mentioned before, you can always go over here in the question in the your user settings, and you can turn on now what we are having as an experiment feature for the moment, the added presentation as a timeline. So before I turn this on, when I click on my presentation, I'm looking at things organized over here by slides, right? So you can change that and go into your user settings, turn on the edit presentation as a timeline, and we're keeping this as a feature flag for the moment. You need to enable it so we can collect some feedback from you guys and understand like how this tool is working. And basically now to get to your presentation mode, as you can see, the button is not here anymore, but it is over here on the top. So if you click on presentation mode, you're going to activate your presentation view to look at the slides in this kind of like timeline format. So this will give you like a sense of like where your camera transitions are happening, how long the slides are taking in your whole timeline of your exported video, right? So this will give you kind of like a video editing interface for this. I'm not going to dwell too much on the details because like once we release the feature officially without you having to enable it, I'm going to talk more about it. But basically what I wanted to show here today is that you can use this sliding function to go quickly through the slides and see a little preview of your presentation. But not just that, you can also see, for example, whenever there is a growth profile being growth animation being assigned to a part, you can see how that growth profile is going to take by simply sliding these. See, like if I slide this, I can see what is the direction of my pour for those objects. So you can play around with this to kind of organize and review what is the how this is going to look like. Okay, so it's a very interesting way for you to navigate through these back and forth. Cool. So I had another bonus hint that I was going to talk about today. So I'm going to keep this one for the next workshop, just because we're at the brink of the hour over here. And let's just quickly recap what we talked about today.
Pedro,
Yep.
cut you off. There's a question in the chat. Did you already grab Mitch? I don't think so. Can you filter
No.
out existing and new construction items? You see that?
Existing in construction from showing the original tree only if those parts are assigned on the source file. So like this is a Revit attribute. So when you open your modern Revit and you see those phasings attributes over there, that's a Revit based kind of like configuration, so that it doesn't convert into other softwares. So like the new construction in existing construction, you have to have them kind of like assigned to classes or levels, or even import files just for the existing file for the new ones, so you can manage them on the tree. Okay. Are there any plans to expand cmBuilder integrations to others? I would say that like yes, but it's defined by feature requests, right? So sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Chaitanya. You can put in your feature request here to let us know what type of integrations you want for the future, right? So we just recently added the compatibility with Navisworks, and we plan to have like more integrations later with other systems in other file formats. So please let us know what you want from in this feature request form. Cool. Okay. So just recapping everything, we talked today about ACC integration, how to manage the visibility in the hierarchy of these elements, highlighting the features, the new features, Navisworks compatibility, NWD and NWC files. You can import them in cmBuilder now. How to add place resources quickly with the rotation shortcuts and things like that. Other updates, I did a quick review on the previous session, tips and tricks, troubleshooting guide, and the preview of animation videos. Sadly, I couldn't talk about this guy, but I'm talking it on the next workshop. Oh, we have any question? With the NWD import, does it take visibility from NWD into account during the import? It will take not the hiding shows that you apply over here, so this won't be taken into account. It will use like all the parts that you have with its defined colors in this system, and then you bring it over to Simba. You're gonna see the same thing. Cool. So the main part of our session today has been concluded. If anyone wants to hang around and like ask more questions, you feel free to stay a little bit more. And yeah, please request new features. Let us know what you want. Your feedback is what fuels us, is our kind of like our breakfast over here to to know what to build next for you guys. Okay. Okay, I think we covered everything. Thanks everyone for joining today, and have a nice one.